All right, perfect. And we're recording. All right, so welcome everybody to uh, another remote edition of Boston Haskell. Today we have Andrew Boardman speaking. Andrew is the executive director of the Haskell Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to driving Haskell adoption. Next month will be his 1 year anniversary on the job. And here he is to give us an update about how things are going with him and with the Haskell Foundation. Take it away, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Welcome, adventurers. Hello. Let me get set up a little bit here. There we go. Maybe a little bit of that. Thank you so much for agreeing to this unusual format. I appreciate your flexibility. Due to our time constraints, we'll be running this as a one-shot campaign with a series of mini quests. You'll play a mage for maximum fun, and we'll start you at like level 8, I'm thinking. I'll track your stats and roll for you. So let's just drop in and see how you fare. You have heard rumors of an enchanted library where all the scrolls are written in an old and obscure magical style called Haskell. There are many enchanted libraries created by technomancers, most of which are heavily influenced by Haskell and its community. It is intensely expressive and allows tiny scrolls to create vast power. The density of the power means that Haskell's enchanted library is much more powerful than you would expect for its size. However, it has become clear that an invisible force is holding the power of the enchanted library hostage, and its powers are not working as they should. You must identify the outside powers working against the library and diffuse them. Save the library and all the wisdom it holds. Okay. You find yourself in a cozy, wood-paneled room as 14 small blue portals open in front of you. Through the portals, you can see each member of the Council of Elders of Haskell. They greet you warmly and then return to their energetic conversation about the different modes of portals available for such convenings, and each has a strong opinion on the ideal portal for their purpose. One says that blue is not the optimal color of these portals, and white portal we'll call slackline is pleasing and simpler to utilize. A second says the black discordancy portal mode is a superior choice for their deliberations. And so many of the council members already prefer to spend their leisure time there. Many prefer an older and simpler version of these kinds of technologies that don't have a lot that you can see through the portals. But that's kind of what they like. The conversation has clearly been going on for a very long time. Oh, yeah, sure, okay. You try to open a portal with just one of them at a time. Let's make an Arcana check. 22, nicely done. Okay, the 14 portals, they merge to become one, and you face an elder that is wearing a tiny little skull cap. The mysterious force is not mysterious at all. It is the technomancers being too focused on the ideal grammar and not the impact on scribes using it every day. Haskell's surprising density of power is made possible by the brilliantly baffling and deeply inscrutable grammatical rules dictated by the technomancers. But when they improve the rules, it can be catastrophic to the power of existing scrolls. While a few scribes are notorious for being attracted by new and powerful grammar, regardless of the consequences, the majority are understandably frustrated when their extreme dedication and toil is undermined by the technomancer's innovation. Suddenly, the portal between you starts to fizzle and pop. Suddenly, you're looking at a different elder who says, Actually, the greater source of the mysterious binding force is the struggle of scribes to master the ways of Haskell magic. Convoluted practices in Haskellian grammar, often with limited documentation or enchanted blueprints available, present a huge challenge to scribes, particularly if they have not been enmeshed in the work of the library for very long. It is unlike most of the better known magical grammars, which stifles its influence. The portal turns dark with a small pop, and when it reilluminates, a third elder faces you. It isn't about the mastery of the scribes. Even expert technomancers find it difficult to wield Haskell safely and effectively. It is all too easy for even the most talented and knowledgeable among us to create spells whose powers and effects we cannot easily see. And even after devoting seemingly eons of time to create beautifully expressive scrolls, we find that we cannot predict what the magic will do once we activate it. It's still worse. As a result, it is very easy to write an entire scroll that uses more magic to activate than it provides, making it a net loss until it is painstakingly rewritten. After that, the room suddenly disappears and you find yourself standing in front of a building. It looks kind of like a small castle. A plaque over the door says Haskell Branch Library. The door is locked. As you lift your hand to the latch, you hear it slide aside as the door creaks open. You enter a room of haphazard shelves housing glowing scrolls, not skulls, could be skulls, but scrolls with webs of light emanating in all directions. At first glance, no one seems to be manning the shelves, but on further examination, you can see that the library scrolls are being inscribed and imbued from all over the world, that this building houses the work of dozens of scribes positioned around the globe. You deduce that the flickering scrolls are actively being cast, and if you unroll a scroll, as it flickers, it becomes a window to the scribe or scribes currently working on it. You choose a frantically flickering scroll and unroll it. A scribe with a charming accent lifts her head from her spellcasting portal. Some scrolls are very old, and when the technomancers improve the grammar Bibles, older scrolls can lose their power altogether. Sometimes it's so difficult to revive or rewrite them that we have to move on to more pressing matters and leave them inactive. You roll it up and return it to its place, and unroll another flashing scroll from a nearby shelf. The scribe, bundled up and cold, says to you, "Imbuing lettering with magic is a finicky process that takes hours upon hours. And often the same lengthy incantation must be repeated over and over so that it can take an inordinate amount of time to finish a single scroll." You notice a particularly shadowy looking scroll, faintly pulsing with only the dimmest light. You open that one, and a slim and scruffy scribe lowers his voice. The weakening of the library's enchantments is the result of the troll disease, taking or undermining scribes, mages, technomancers of Haskell. We don't know why it happens. But at branches like these, it's easy for the troll disease to develop and run rampant. Troll disease can be found throughout the world, but there seems to be pockets where it breeds, and the satellite branches of Haskell are extremely susceptible. When troll disease takes over, the person can become paranoid and destructive. It makes communication difficult with them. It makes it hard to coordinate and almost makes it impossible to complete tomes that require the work of many scrolls and scribes. Worst of all, it sometimes causes brilliant scribes to leave the branch and strike out in search of another, healthier library network. Okay. Let's take a break for a second. 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 I know I'm being subtle in all the metaphors here, but let's talk about what I'm actually getting at. In an open source community like we have in Haskell, it's all about the community. It's all about people working together for common good. And in order for that to work, there has to be reasons why people want to be part of the community, why they want to work on the technology. Having a cool language is not enough. Necessary but insufficient. In fact, you might even look at some other languages out there and go, it's not even necessary. But the thing that's important is the community. So if we can't have cohesion, if we can't have this desire to work together, then we're not going to get the basic work done on GHC, on all of the core tools and libraries. It takes a monumental amount of work to keep those going, to improve them, to get the work done that makes this language tick. And we don't have a giant corporation. We don't have anybody backing us to make it happen. We don't, for the most part, pay people to work on this stuff. I'm an exception, and there are a few others, but that's it. We can't do it alone. So what we depend on is creating a community that people want to be a part of, that they're excited to give their time and effort for. And in order to make that work, we really need to understand how to make the community work. I think conflict resolution and de-escalation techniques are not just a good thing for moderators to have. I think they are techniques that make your life better. If you have those skills, you will just be happier and better able to go through the world. Consider going through some training on that, even if you don't decide to be a moderator. But moderation is not police. Moderation is people helping other people make good choices, come across in a positive light, and treat each other with dignity and respect. We want to be known as the nice community of people that are supporting each other, mentoring each other, helping each other become better. We all love this language. I love this language. That's why I have this job, because I was so attracted to this language and I want to make a difference. In order for that to work, we have to get along. In order for us to get along, you have to agree that you will not agree with everybody about everything, but you will treat them as people and you will treat them with respect and you will just generally be nice. And part of what we want to do in the HF with the guidelines for respectful communication and the code of conduct that we're working on is to say, here's the min bar for a great community that people want to be a part of. And the other thing that I would say is really appreciate the time and effort that goes on with the volunteers that make this community work. They don't owe you anything. They're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They're putting a lot of work into the community. Please thank them for it. Okay, let's get back to the silliness. Hold on. Whoop, wrong thing. There we go. Ominous enough? Excellent. All of a sudden, the ground opens beneath your feet, and you are tumbling back to a small paneled room, staring at the 14 portals of the Council of Elders. The benevolent technomancer on the council waves a welcome. Thank you for embarking on your fact-finding mission. We are anxious to hear what must we do to preserve the legacy and life of our beloved enchanted library of Haskell. You clear your throat. It seems to me that you have a complicated problem. And so naturally, the answer is not simple. You ask, what is the force outside interfering with the reach of Haskell's power? But I am here to tell you, for the most part, the force is being disrupted from within. The message is coming from inside the castle. There are some who would prefer the technomancers stop changing the grammar that holds the scroll's enchantments. The wizards turn on their microphones and begin protesting, but you gesture to request that they wait. But of course, Part of the great concentration of Haskell's enchantment is that its power continues to concentrate as grammatical improvements are made. If the grammar of the enchantments had been frozen in the past, the scrolls of Haskell would not be nearly as powerful as they are today. One can only assume then that with continued change and improvement, still greater unforeseeable power will come. Secondly, much has been said about the difficulty in creating strong scrolls in great numbers when the creation of certain scrolls requires so much time and repetition. Making it less time-consuming would be a boon felt across the entire community. Third, the number of fluent scribes is relatively small, but increasing their number involves addressing multiple other challenges. Lastly, expert scribes from other libraries have come to try to help, but often it can take months or years for them to learn how to create a living scroll successfully. Haskell is best thought of as a constellation of enchantments. Technomancers provide powerful rules of grammar and compose incantations that activate the scroll's magic. Scribes design and script expressive scrolls that harness Haskell's power, and then mages from various disciplines, including non-magical ones, use this magically generated power for a wealth of practical and academic purposes. Every one of these individuals is important to the constellation, and at this moment, each part of the constellation is experiencing complex challenges, and every one of those challenges has its own stifling effect on the magic of Haskell. At this point, every council member is peering expectantly through their respective portals as the technomancer with the tiny hat says, "So what do you suggest that we do?" I'm sorry, what? Oh, but you, okay, well, let's give that a shot. Roll for persuasion. Well then. In general, you say very gently, I suggest you talk to each other. The council is silent for a moment, and the elders ponder this. When the conversation restarts among them, though, it is very thoughtful. They begin to arrive at priorities. They will immediately devote magical resources towards strengthening the committee that maintains the central magical library and improve how they address issues being reported by the various branches. You also hear the name of two magical projects, Haystack and Cabalstone, which are among the favorites of the scribes of Haskell for enabling bits of scrolls to magically write themselves. And the council commits to finding mages to maintain them. Okay, another aside here. I think you all know of Emily Pilmore, the foundation's outgoing CTO, and it is telling that three of the big accomplishments for the last year in the Haskell world were either directly her work or indirectly influenced by her work. She has made the community better, and I am deeply appreciative of the enormous amount of blood, sweat, and tears that she poured into the Haskell Foundation. So thank you, Emily. In terms of CLC, Stack, Cabal, UTF contributors and maintainers, thank you so much for giving your time to keep the heart of our community alive and thriving. I hope it will motivate many others to follow your lead. And finally, I would like to thank the board of directors for the Haskell Foundation. They have taken time out of their work, out of their lives, to really work at making our entire community better and more successful. And it is generally a thankless task. So let me change that. Thank you. Thank you so much for your service to our community. Right. Hold on. Finally, they agree to harness significant magical energies so that all activating incantations can be translated into the Unicorn Transformation Format 8 that promises to both improve the Enchanted Library's magical efficiency, not to mention wildly decrease the blood pressure among Haskellian scribes. As they prepare to close their portals, they commend your talent for collecting information and communicating it, and offer that they are very pleased for you to continue to do just that helping them stay responsive to the needs of the scribes and the mages in the field. They express their hopes that you will be a permanent addition to the Haskell enchantment community. Oh, I guess that's that. What? Oh, yeah, they didn't just plan to do those things. They actually did those things. Well, those things happened in large part because of the vision and the dedication of the Central Technomancy Overlord, CTO. See what I did there? Okay. Where was I? Oh, yes. The council and other stewards of Haskell also have exciting plans for the immediate future. They intend to keep investing in magical civic infrastructure, like building a town square for the marketplace of magic and hiring a mystical plumber mage or something. But that'll be the next one shot that we do. We're out of time for today's campaign. Anyway, it didn't go exactly like I planned for it to do, but well done. And caring for a sprawling, benevolent, magical ecosystem is slow going, but the key is to keep showing up. I hope we see you again. We always need more creative thinkers like you. Okay, that's it. My silliness is over. Do we want to take questions? Let's see here. What do we have?
Yeah. I don't see any questions in the chat or the QA spot. Oh, we got a hand raised though. So yeah, just go ahead and unmute and take it away.
Hi, I'm Ari. I'm new to your community, and I'm from Germany. And I'm late because I didn't know that I was taking part in it, except Twitter, your Twitter effort, pulling me in, and I didn't regret it. I don't regret it. It was really, really thought through and lovely and humorous presentation. Thank you very much. Great.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks
Thank you so much. Any other questions? And I promise not to answer them in character, if that helps.
If you do,
sure.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Only when no one else is asking any questions?
Go for it.
Okay. What is the mission of the foundation? You mentioned it, that the Technomancers,
The mission of the foundation is to drive Haskell adoption and influence. So we want more people learning Haskell. We want more companies that are basing their technology stack on it. And we want to improve the productivity of the people that already know it.
Is there a mission statement? Would be a better question, or more correct question.
There is. I believe I would have to look it up. It's essentially like driving the adoption of Haskell.
Oh, wow, that is boring. Okay, and the and the community building thing. Elm, for example, is surely connected in everyone's head as a delightful developer experience. They did a great job with marketing that out. So we, and I make my marks here, we are known as the nice community. Well, why nice?
So we're taking in general the community cues from the Rust community, which is well known for being a very inclusive community that welcomes new people of all different skill levels. And I think that's one of the things that we have not had in the past. We've been a little bit prickly, and so one of the things that we really want is we want to make sure that we're not chasing people away. The language can be difficult to learn if you don't have the background in it. We don't need further things making it difficult to come into the community, feel welcome, and learn what.
I totally appreciate that. Yes, but nice. Just with my new approaching member, I don't know, eyes. It's not a turn in; it's a turn off, because nice is a word that's used even in our modern normal language as a substitute for boring, but okay. So when I would have such creative input, where do I put it? To whom do I dump my ideas? Is there one person to do the job, like a community manager, or?
I mean, you can absolutely send them to me as it is, Andrew at Haskell.Foundation. I would be absolutely happy to take all of those suggestions and ideas.
I do. Cool.
I
There
love it.
are quite a few. So,
Excellent.
okay.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I'm all about boring, as you can tell, but
You aren't, and that is
that's not
quite
for everybody.
refreshing. Andrew at Haskell Foundation.
Foundation.
Okay, cool. I post questions in the mail as well, so that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Mr. Montgomery.
This may be old news to everybody else. I don't know. You mentioned the outgoing CTO. Do we know who the incoming CTO is going to be, or is there a search on for that, or what's the situation?
That is very much in flux. That's an excellent question. So we currently are looking to hire a DevOps professional for the Haskell community. They're going to be supporting the GHC team in particular, also core libraries, Stack, Cabal, HLS, some of the projects that are really central to the community. We want to bring somebody in that can both rationalize like the CI infrastructure for GHC to make those developers more productive and take that burden off of some of those core developers that are currently doing that job, but also make that infrastructure homogeneous across the core of the community so that you can jump from project to project without having to learn a brand new system, and you can really come up to speed quickly. That right now is my priority in hiring. I do think there's a possibility we will hire a new CTO, and we're currently looking at like what would the job requirements for that be, what would be the responsibilities, and what kind of background do we want, what kind of particular skills do we want them to have, and how does that align with our current strategy. And I'm talking to people about this in sort of an informal way, but at some point, if we decide that that is the right thing to do, we're going to put a posting up saying, you know, here's the requirements. Please feel free to apply for it.
And for the DevOps, whatever that title will be, is there a public application process that everybody can find for that? Everybody who's interested?
Yeah, so there is a PR to the Haskell Foundation website that's currently in flight that has the job requirements and everything, and I'm getting feedback from people. And this is a great example. It's on GitHub, Haskell Foundation, and then the website is a GitHub page. If you have feedback on the way that job requirement is described, or something doesn't make any sense, or you don't know what exactly we're looking for, please give feedback in that PR. I'm actively looking for that, and we're hoping to get that posted very soon, officially.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes.
That's me?
Yes, please.
Cool. How are junior Haskell developers attracted to you? Oh,
yeah, that's a great question. So I've been doing a series of interviews of professional Haskellers, but on the early side of learning Haskell. So they may be, you know, very experienced developers, but they haven't been doing Haskell for very long. And usually it's because they find out about functional programming, or they have learned functional programming in some other way.
This is the one starting with functional programming, not the normal way, not like the majority of people stumbling into functional programming via object-oriented programming or procedural or spaghetti, I don't know. But the few folks like me who happen to stumble into functional programming first, and now there's no kind of systematic thing about that. It's just odd. Could you do that as a sort of how is it called in marketing, like a unique point of
value
sale.
proposition.
Yeah, something along those lines. Thanks.
Yeah.
Could you imagine doing that?
Yeah, so we have some ideas along those lines. I talk to a lot of companies, and part of what I'm interested in is, why does the company pick Haskell as its tech stack? And also, why do individuals pick to learn Haskell? And there's a variety of different reasons. My personal experience was, I was looking for solutions to the very hard problems in computer science: parallelism, concurrency, error handling, resiliency. And when I looked at actual papers, academic papers on how they were thinking about fixing these problems, almost all of them were in functional programming, and most of those were in Haskell. So that's kind of where I got it. I was looking for something. I found
Where I
functional
got
programming.
it, that virus, that thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then I went to well, what's the functionalist of the functional programming languages?
Yeah,
that's actually in use. And at the time, this was before Elm and so on. So this was definitely Haskell. And I think that's one of the ways that people come into it. Some people come into it from a mathematical background, and they feel very at home because of the syntax being very mathematical, and some people learn it in university, and they fall in love with it as part of a university course as well.
So my reasoning is that Haskell Foundation could do a great job with a worldwide first functional programming bootcamp. And please replace bootcamp with a term you are more familiar or more comfortable with. I searched the whole wide web many times, and there is none. And I will make one someday, I'm sure. I think there are more strange people like me, more not coming from a math background, having studied at university something completely different, and fallen in love in a second, but having no formal way to go to it as a structured approach. And functional programming is, I believe, the same easiness as an object-oriented programming, but it's so weird doing that on one's own. You understand what I mean? And I think this could be a great chance with a pilot project or something like that. I write to you about it. I think some more.
Andrew, you're muted.
Oops. Thank you. There are a number of things that we've thought about doing, and it's all a matter of prioritization and resources. So at some point, we would like to really reach out to the wider community, programmers and not, and say, this is something that you should learn. Here's the value of it. The reason that we haven't done that so far is I don't feel like our tooling is friendly enough, beginner friendly enough, to retain the people that we would attract. So the current work that we're doing is very much about trying to improve the developer experience for people that understand the language but aren't experts at it yet, haven't figured out their own workarounds to the problems that they run into, and then get those in pretty good shape before we go out and try to expand the community in a big way. But I would love to expand the community in a big way.
Okay, think about the tooling part being on one's own, as compared to having the same tooling, maybe not so well presented tooling, not so well thought through, in a community-based setting. It's better that way, and it's the same tooling we are using in both cases. So if you're left alone with the tooling that is not cool, not easygoing, then you give up earlier, I would say, roundabout. How old is the age structure of Haskell communities? Is there a thing like old people, like 30 and above, or?
It varies a lot because the language has been around for 30 some years.
Yeah.
You have people who've been doing it since the very beginning, and you've got people that are just discovering it even in high school today. So I don't think it swings super young right now. We would like to but it has in the past. So there have been times where Haskell has sort of become the cool thing to learn. Yeah. And then it kind of tapers out. So we have a little bit of that. It would be great for it to be the cool thing again.
Do we have data showing like when a surge in young people came and what? Yes, I see Sean nodding.
Yeah. So
I'm actually a historian by trade.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in like the historical.
Yeah. We
And
have
maybe
some data. We definitely have some data. We have the State of Haskell Survey that goes out yearly, but it's only been going on like the last 5 years consistently. However, the HF is going to take that over, and we've hired a professional data analyst and survey designer to make that better so that we can get better data out of it.
So do we know already which are the surging kind of events that triggered the surge, or is it magic still?
It's a bit magic because that's the last 5 years of data, and the last time I feel like it was like an actively cool thing that lots of people came into was maybe a decade or a little bit more ago.
I wouldn't know what actively cool, what event could trigger someone to learn a language they wouldn't have thought possible before or not choosable. But I give that some thoughts. Thank you.
That's an excellent question, and I would love to know the answer to that.
Me too.
Ian. I'm not here.
Sort of vaguely. So one of the things I kind of often run into is I feel like there just aren't great resources for like self-directed learning Haskell for people who don't have a heavy math background, and I often run into developers who express interest in learning this thing, and they're like, "What would you recommend?" And I'm like, I got nothing. Like I literally, I learned from Learn You Haskell way back when, but that was pre-Haskell 2010. Honestly, I have mixed feelings about it. Looking back, real world Haskell was pretty good at the time, but it's horrendously out of date. And I think this is kind of, it strikes me a major barrier because it's everyone I've talked to either learned some other functional programming language first or just bounced off of it enough times and finally stuck to it, which is sort of what I did. It seems like people have a much easier time learning it if they have like an active mentor, but I've got kind of nothing for self-directed resources. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I definitely think getting a mentor is huge, and it's not easy to do, and maybe we need some way of people registering as they would love to be able to mentor people so that other people can find them. Learn You Haskell is where I initially started out with as well. Unfortunately, it went offline like a couple days ago. It's just disappeared off of the internet, and we're talking internally in the HF, for transparency. We know the copyright it's under. We can rehost that, and we're thinking about doing that. And I may even pay a professional writer to clean it up, update some of the examples, and make it more modern and more usable. There are some known weaknesses in the way that it presents Haskell, and it might also be cool to like address those. Another effort that's going on right now is Haskell School. So Hecate, one of the board members, is working with a team of volunteers, the documentation volunteers, who are both going through the ecosystem and figuring out what documentation is really out of date and cleaning it up and updating it, but also trying to write what's basically copied from Elixir School, and that structure, taking that structure and then applying it to Haskell and saying, how can we make it easier to come up to speed on the basics of Haskell? I've also heard extremely good things about Haskell from first principles. I've not seen that myself, but I continue to hear very good things about that. And the other one that I would suggest is Professor Hutton's Learning Haskell book, which is just absolutely excellent, really top notch. He, in fact, if you do a search on YouTube, he's got 2 of his courses at University of Nottingham online. One of them's second year, one of them's a third year, and I love those. Like, the description of monads in that is the best I've seen.
That's kind of the best teaser ever.
Yes, Vince.
In the one idea for the mentoring thing, and I don't know if it's already on your list, but if you work at a big company, often big companies institute a code review policy, and there's like a pool of like, you mark your thing as wanting code review and anybody can come along and give you a code review. Is there currently a process for that, or is that something on your list to be able to do, just so that like new coders can write something and say, hey, I need code review, I know nothing about what I'm doing, and board experts can be like, yeah, let me read this and teach the youngsters how it's done. Like,
Yeah, I got two answers to that. One is that I actually did this when I was learning. I created this Dominion simulator, and I kind of put it out there. Dominion is a deck building card game that I love, and so I wrote this simulator for it, which I've been still working on it. It still exists. And I kind of put it out to some experts that I had seen in the community and said, could you do a code review of this? And they were able to do a little bit, but I, of course, was only aware of the very busiest ones because they had the biggest profile in the community. We have, if you look at the Haskell Foundation GitHub repository, we have a volunteering repo. And in this volunteering repo, we have a place for people to say that they want to volunteer and kind of list out what skills and stuff and what interests they have. And we have a place for project leaders to say, here are the kind of volunteers that I need. And they can interact with each other on GitHub issues and say, this is something I'm interested in. This is not something that I'm interested in. We also have a speaker bureau there, so that you can say, I'm willing to give speeches on these particular subjects for exactly these kinds of meetups. We could extend that to mentoring, and I think that would be an excellent thing. So I'll take that as a thing to do and add mentoring, both request for mentoring and a willingness to mentor.
Well, this may seem like a nitpick, but I would like to specifically say code review kind of on a small scale, because I think a lot of people are going to be scared off by the idea of mentoring because it sounds big, it sounds heavy. But if you just say like, just do a code review of a few pages of pull requests at a time, it sounds much more manageable. And I feel like you'll get a better adoption rate on both sides, because I think a lot of people also don't want to be the burden of, oh, I need a mentor, that's such a big commitment.
Yeah.
But if you say, look, it's real easy to say, I would love to get a code review on this 3-page thing, or this, 10-file project, initial commit, whatever. Like that seems like a more bite-sized thing, and I feel like you'll get better adoption.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
I agree totally with Vince. How is your name pronounced?
Yeah, it's Vince.
Vince. Okay. My cat, his name is written the same way as you are, but he's called Vinci, like the Da Vinci. I totally agree. And coming from a potential mentee of the future, I tried writing to different people, to a couple of people directly, doing exactly the kind of marketing yourself, but I just suck at it. And I tried doing that on a project-based level. So not code review, but similar to that, in the spirit of bite size. And but I think people, mentors, are kind of afraid to commit to such a direct, who is that weirdo? Why me? And that would be another reason to formalize it, like within the community. And I think image is important there as well.
Yeah, and setting expectations and setting boundaries, I think, is key. So if you know that you are only committing to half an hour a week, that's a very different thing than sort of the open-ended I'm a mentor thing. Yeah, I completely agree. Thank you for that. And the other thing that I would say, especially since Barry is right here, is there are some Twitch streamers that do Haskell, and they do a variety of different projects. And Barry and I and Rebecca have been talking a lot about a potential project that we might do in collaboration with each other. And part of the idea behind this is to give people an idea of what it's like to actually write a real program in Haskell that does a particular thing, and how to interact with other people and work together on that kind of a project. I'm very excited about the project. But it's one of those things where it's a volunteer effort, and we just have to individually and collectively find the free time to to make progress on it.
So I got a little lost in the gorgeous narrative of your story, and I might have missed it. You mentioned that Emily had driven 3 core projects to completion, and that there was 2 future projects that the Haskell Foundation was currently driving on. Could you elaborate on those a little bit more, and or point us to a place where we can look into them more on our own?
Yeah, and in fact, this is a problem that we have where the project page for the foundation is not correctly up to date, and that is one of the things that I need to work on soon. So the big things that you know, Emily, some of the most important things she did was get the core libraries committee back up and running. It had basically been defunct. It was kind of overwhelming to the people that had volunteered. She essentially rebooted it and created a process, and then they scoped it down so that it was more manageable, so that this group of people could actually start working through the backlog of issues in some of the core libraries. The other thing was the Cabal project, which was also not really functioning correctly anymore. And she rebooted that, recruited some new maintainers, and they actually have been making new releases with significant feature updates. Some things that have been desired for many, many years and just haven't happened. The ones she didn't directly work on, but was influential with, was the UTF-8 conversion for base text. That was Bodegrim, and Kaz Ross from MLabs also helped with that significantly. For the stuff going on right now, I just got out of a HF Tech Track meeting a few minutes ago before the talk, and we've got a few proposals there, all the way from seeing if we can decouple base from GHC releases, which is very hard in many ways, to some work in GHC that they're doing to try to improve the error messages. And this one's really exciting to me personally because it enables a lot of really interesting tool changes. Because the idea is, instead of at the place in GHC where the error is found, instead of pre-printing the error message, it will instead fill in a data structure with all the context specific to that error. And then you throw that up, and then in a separate process, you pre-print it. Now, because of that decoupling, one, you can give the tools the data structure directly, so that it can start doing some automatic stuff and interpretation for it. But also now you can have people working on the error messages decoupled from being in the code where the error is happening. And that's really cool because now you can have people that are better at explaining things to people, focused on doing that, and people who are better at like the technical plumbing of GHC and the type checker and all that stuff, focusing on that. Other things that we're doing are very much around community building and communication. So a lot of my time is spent talking to people in the community, talking to different projects, making sure that things kind of don't get missed between projects. So a great example of this is Haskell Language Server, which powers our IDEs. That team is very small, and they're all volunteers. And so if we want significant work done on that, we need some way of making sure that the things that they need from GHC, for instance, are well communicated. And putting that burden on the HLS maintainers is just not useful a lot of the time. So if I can meet with the HLS people and get an idea of the big problems they're running into, and then go to the GHC team and try to translate it and help affect the priorities of GHC development to address those things, then things don't get kind of lost. And I consider the HF in that case to be sort of a safety net for the community to make sure things don't get dropped on the ground. Yes.
About the community building and the communication in our teams, you said something really sweet and really scary at the same time about the lowest possible common denominator being human. And it wasn't like in a tech bot kind of opposing humanity. It was like, it sounded like you all were fighting a lot. And that was scary. How is the community? I don't have any clue.
Right now, I think the community
seriously
is yeah, right now I think we're doing really well. Right now I feel like that there's a lot of cohesion and cooperation. That has not always been the case. And there are a few camps that have some particular priorities, and they disagree with other groups' priorities, and that's all okay.
So they're black sheep communities, like endearingly called.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the thing that I've noticed talking to all of these communities is none of them are wrong. They just have different priorities, and
Yes, for sure.
and they have
Like
different ideas about how to fix those problems. So
yes, but the magic word is communication, and not communication
yes.
echo chamber inside the group or inside one's head, but towards other groups, so that
Yeah.
not the opinion you may have out of fear of whatever is making you the outsider, because you think so that is really important in any community building, even in politics. And it doesn't work in politics anymore in America because it's too far gone.
Yes. I think that, you know, go ahead. Yeah, I think that we're getting better and better communication, and I feel like a big part of my job is just facilitating communication and translating.
You are magic man for me. I don't know you any other way. You will be forever magic man.
I'm okay with that.
Cool. Okay. That is my next question, and I think it is the last one. Do you know, any of you know of like your top 3 adjectives you think are the thing for Haskell? That could be a common denominator where most of us, of you, however, would be willing to sign up for or really against. And not nice, not nice. That's too generic. Do you understand what I mean?
I think so. You know, personally, my passion is around tooling. I think the better our tooling, the better
not what
everything.
I mean. Adjectives describing the mental model of a Haskell programmer. Why it is cool to be a Haskell programmer and not an Elm programmer or not a JavaScript or PHP or I don't know. Because community building can't happen from outside. That goes terribly wrong every time. So, for example, calling the Latinx people wasn't a good idea because 70% are appalled by that name. And the intention was good. They wanted to gender neutral that name, Latina and Latinos, but not that the approach was wrong. And that is a big thing in the Haskell community when you are at that stage, which you described. There can be a lot of fatal errors be made by overbearing or by under asking the community. So is there anywhere I can look up like who Haskell programmers are mental model wise? Because it seems to be a hard question for all of you.
That is a hard question. Does anybody have some thoughts on that?
At SimSpace, where I work and where Andrew used to work, we recently had a conversation around redesigning our job application. And we had a discussion similar to this when we were trying to come up with adjectives to describe the sort of job applicants it would be interested in taking on a career in Haskell. Especially because we were trying to open our doors to more junior engineers. Some of the ones that we really honed in on were like a lot of Haskell engineers are very driven. I know that's a pretty generic one, but you really do have to be driven to learn Haskell. Like it's a lot to take in and it's not easily accessible. And so you have to be very self-driven and directed to be able to gather that information. A lot of Haskellers care a lot about correctness. So when they're writing their code, they like to think through every possible failure condition and every possible state and really make sure that it is
So the job
bulletproof before they go through it.
writes over semicolons. So it's not that worrying, that level of correctness you described. It makes more sense than semicolons.
Mhm.
So you would say driven in the sense, stamina sense. So
Or motivated.
Motivated, yeah.
okay, cool. Curiosity, intellectual curiosity.
Absolutely.
Very much. And I
Okay.
think also people love the expressivity, the power that you can get with a little bit. Scrupulously exact. I love that, Rebecca.
So I find it hard to the community has to somehow be be included in that image finding thing. We all know that, but only you know how well you are organized and how your communication structure is. But I would like to stress that from the outside, and I'm open-minded. I'm all eager to join. It's worrying that that there aren't like shooting everybody adjectives. So who we are, who we like to be, who we want to be portrayed outside. Actually, that has to come like really fast, even if it's not the same thing. So it's a good thing, I think, that you're going to work on that and to form
Well,
identity.
but keep in mind that if we're going to take a stab at that, Haskellers have to be type correct, and we don't accept that it might not be type correct, and so
That adds to it. Yes.
as Rebecca said, scrupulously exact. Like, oh, it doesn't type check. Never mind. Never mind. Never mind. Well, excellent.
All right. If there's no more questions, I think we could probably wrap things up. Thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us this evening and that very creative and unexpected conversation. We have recorded all of this and we'll have it up on our YouTube channel in about a week. There is a Twitter, but no one actually knows who owns it right now, so you don't worry about following that. So that'll be up on YouTube, though. That'll be good. And maybe, Andrew, if you could share some information with us through the meetup or on the Twitter channel about where we can go to get more involved with the Haskell Foundation, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely.
Oh, looks like we had one more question.
Yeah, sorry. I read on the meetup page of today that it was planned on being completely online, and that sounded like normally it's hybrid or like a in real world community meeting. Is that right, or is it always an online edition possible? So I don't want to grow.
So
Snatched away because Germany is too far away from Boston.
We always will have the broadcast going in at least a hybrid sense, so people can always join online. Usually we will be meeting at SimSpace in Boston, just because it's where I work and we get to use the building for free. But yeah, we'll absolutely always have an online option, and we will be capturing all of the recordings to watch later as well if you miss any events. All right. Well, thank you everybody so much. If anyone is interested in any Haskell jobs, my corporation is always hiring. You can reach me at my email, which I will share in the sidebar now. And thank you so much for joining. And that's all I got.
Thank you.
If you still hearing? No, okay. I want to say